Now we're going to speak about the sixth use of se, which is the impersonal se. This is a part of everyday conversation and sometimes might be confusing for you, so let's break it down so that you can understand it easily.
Okay, first things first. What is the impersonal se? Well, it's a way of making general statements in Spanish, where the subject isn't specific or important. Basically, it's a way of saying people, one, or they in English without having to name a specific person. For example, in English we might say, they say it's going to rain. In Spanish, we can use the impersonal se to express that same idea.
You might feel tempted to translate that directly into Spanish saying, ellos dicen que va a llover. If you say that, I'm going to ask you, who? Who is saying that? Who is they? Because we do not speak that way in Spanish. We wouldn't say they say it's going to rain. Instead, to convey the same idea, we're going to use the impersonal se. We're going to say, se dice que va a llover. Se dice que va a llover.
Notice that there's no specific person mentioned. Se dice means it is said or they say. The action is what's important, not who does it.
So what's important here is the action, not the person who does the action. So next time you feel tempted to translate something like they say it's going to rain directly, remember the impersonal se.
I have a question. Could you tell me when to use the impersonal se, please? That seems a little confusing.
Sure, no problem. The impersonal se is used when we talk about an action that anyone could do without referring to a specific person or group. The verb is always conjugated in the third person singular. Here are some examples.
Se vive bien en esta ciudad.
One lives well in this city.
Dicen que va a llover mañana.
They say it will rain tomorrow. In these cases, the subject is not important and we are more focused on the action itself. A second way we use it is when giving instructions or rules. For example, we use the impersonal se to give instructions, prohibitions, or rules in a general way, without mentioning who the rule applies to. It's typical for signs, instructions, or formal recommendations. Example:
Se prohíbe fumar.
smoking is prohibited, smoking is not allowed. You might feel tempted to translate directly from English, saying no fumando, but that would only make people feel confused, since in Spanish we don't express prohibitions that way. Here, the action applies to anyone in general, not to a specific person. The verb is always in the third person singular because there's no defined subject. Another example:
Se recomienda usar mascarilla.
wearing a mask is recommended. The recommendation is for anyone, without addressing a specific individual.
No se permiten animales.
No animals allowed. Use number 3 is for descriptions of activities. Impersonal se is used to describe what generally happens in a particular place or situation. It's a way of talking about actions that people in general do, without specifying who. Example:
Se trabaja mucho en esta empresa. En este restaurante se come muy
people work a
bien.
lot in this company. Here, se refers to people in general working hard without saying who specifically. Another example:
En este restaurante se come muy bien.
people eat very well in this restaurant. The focus is on the action, eating well, rather than who does the action.
Se vende.
For sale,
Se necesita contador.
accountant wanted. In English, it is normal to see signs saying help wanted. If you were to translate that directly in Spanish, you might say ayuda querida, but no one would really understand that. So you need to remember to use the impersonal se in this case too. Use number 4 is when asking questions. Impersonal se is also used in questions to ask for information in a general way, without referring to any specific person. This is common when asking for directions or general information. Example:
¿Cómo se llega a la estación?
how do you get to the station? Se replaces one, or people, in this phrase, making the question more general. You're asking how anyone gets to the station, not a specific person. Another example:
¿Dónde se compra el pan aquí?
where do you buy bread here? The question is general, applying to anyone looking to buy bread. Sometimes you might need to ask for permission to do something. Well, if that's the case, you can just ask
¿Se puede?
and a verb in the infinitive. For example, if you want to ask, can we enter? You can use the impersonal se, saying,
¿Se puede entrar?
that would mean, can one enter? How would you say, for example, is it okay to take pictures? How about, how do you write this word? Now try to say, where do you buy the best coffee in this city? One more example. Say, how do you get to the beach from here? Now, suppose that you're in Chile, where earthquakes are frequent. How would you say, what do you do in case of an emergency? Awesome! As we've seen in this video, we can use the impersonal se also to ask for permission to do something. It's also useful to ask for information. Natives will use it a lot when asking for directions. To sum up, the impersonal se is ideal for 1. General situations, to provide general information. For example,
Se come muy bien en Argentina.
one can eat really well in Argentina. 2. Instructions or rules, to give a general rule without specifying who it applies to. For example,
Se prohíbe fumar.
smoking is prohibited. 3. Descriptions of activities, to describe what generally happens without specifying who does it. For example,
Se trabaja mucho en esta empresa.
people work a lot in this company. And 4. General questions, to ask questions that apply to anyone. For example,
¿Cómo se llega a la estación?
how do you get to the station? Now let's go to multilingualz.com and do some exercises.